sound of a faint, steady heartbeat begins. The audio feels slightly muffled, as if from within a confined space. Before we dive into this dark story, look again at the title of this video, 4. Terrifying Spider Horror Stories Encounters. Sounds like a criminal's nightmare, doesn't it? 8-legged witnesses, silent and watching from every corner. But for someone, it was a frightening reality. Before we start, I have a question for you. Where are you watching this? Are you safe and hiding under your covers? Are you alone in your car in a dark parking lot? Or are you watching it in the office, even though you probably shouldn't? Let me know in the comments what time it is and whether you're wearing headphones. Because believe me, you need headphones for this video. The sounds are half the story. We have a goal this week, 500 subscribers. If you want to see and hear such scary content every day, subscribe to the channel now and help me achieve this goal. It's the best way to make sure you never miss a new nightmare. So, if you're ready, let's get started with the first story of crime, mystery, and biological terror. The heartbeat slows, then is abruptly replaced by the sterile, electrical hum of fluorescent lights. That's the mantra, the gospel, the corporate prayer we chant at St. Spiro. It's not about the spinners in the Heidenstee polymer habitats. It's about the gossamer threads they produce. Stronger than steel by weight, more flexible than nylon, biocompatible. And now, thanks to our genetic tweaks, capable of being absorbed by the human body at predetermined rates. The medical applications are limitless. Next-generation sutures, ligament scaffolds, neural bridges. We are not spider farmers. We are biochemical architects. The Nephila clavaps, our golden silk weavers, are merely the most elegant, efficient protein printers on the planet. I am the lead architect, Dr. Aris Thorne. My office overlooked the main habitat chamber, a room kept at a constant 80 degrees Fahrenheit with 80% humidity. Through the triple-paned UV-filtered glass, it looks like a forest of geometric frames draped in living, golden lace. Thousands of our harvesters move with a slow, ceaseless purpose. I haven't slept more than 4 hours a night in 6 months. The pressure from the investors is a physical weight. The silk is the thing. I repeat it, tasting the caffeine and bitterness on my tongue. I've always been afraid of spiders, a childish thing, buried under layers of PhDs and peer-reviewed journals. When I was 8, cleaning the basement, I reached into a dusty cobweb and a fat, hairy wolf spider ran over my hand and up my arm, under my shirt sleeve. I didn't scream. I froze. A perfect, petrified silence, while inside, a tiny universe of pure white-hot terror exploded. I've compartmentalized it. My fear is an old, useless file, stored in a locked cabinet in a disused part of my mind. Or so I told myself. Project Aspect 9 was my idea. A synthetic pheromone, a chemical command. To boost silk production, a harmless motivator. We'd isolated the compounds, synthesized a stable variant. The final aerosolized test was yesterday. There was a breach. A minuscule crack in a pressurized canister, no wider than a hair. It happened while I was calibrating the delivery system. A fine, almost imperceptible mist, smelling faintly of ozone and burnt almonds, bloomed in the sterile air. I inhaled it deeply. My 2 lab techs, Chun and Patel, were at the far end of the room, masked for a different procedure. They reported nothing. No effect. I felt nothing. Until I went home. The dream was not a dream. It was a tactile hallucination. I was in my bed, but I could feel the strands, millions of them, crisscrossing the room, the ceiling, my body. A gentle, persistent tugging, and a sound. A dry, rhythmic rustling, like stiff paper being crumpled over and over. I woke up drenched, my fingers clawing at my own skin. At the lab, the next morning, everything was wrong. It started with the light. The soft, diffused glow in the habitat chamber seemed harsher, casting long, distorted shadows from the web frames. The Nephilim were not moving with their usual, placid industry. Their movements were deliberate, sinister. A large female, designated Harvest 7, perched at the center of her orb web. As I watched, she didn't simply adjust her position. She pivoted, her bulbous abdomen orienting with a slow, horrifying precision until her multiple, dark eyes were fixed on me through the glass. My breath hitched. A coincidence? A trick of the light? Chun was in the habitat for routine collection. He moved between the frames with practiced ease, his hands steady in their protective gloves. To me, it looked like a man walking through a gauntlet of waiting sentinels. The spiders didn't flee from his approach. They tracked him. One would shift, then another in a far corner would adjust its stance, a silent, wave-like communication passing through the colony. A coordinated observation. Did you adjust the environmental cues today? My voice sounded thin in my own ears. Chun looked up, puzzled. No, Dr. Thorne. Same as always. The webs? God, the webs. They were no longer just beautiful, complex structures of capture silk and drag lines. I started to see patterns. Repeating angular distortions in the otherwise perfect spirals. Not random errors. They looked like runes. Like sharp, barbed letters in a language of traps and poison. The sound began in the afternoon. A constant, low-level backdrop to the hum of the HVAC. A skittering, not the light tap of 8 legs on polymer, but a pervasive, whispering scrape. Like 1,000 tiny mandibles gnawing at the other side of reality. It followed me to the bathroom, muted but present. It was in the white noise of my computer fan. Do you hear that? I asked Patel at the spectroscopy station. Hear what, Dr. Ascrepi? A skittering sound. She listened, her brow furrowed. Just the air handlers? And the incubators in Lab B, she offered a tentative smile. You look tired, Dr. Thorne. Maybe you should rest. Rest. The word felt like a threat. I couldn't rest. They were watching, listening, my research notes. Once meticulous records of protein yields and tensile strength degenerated, they became a frantic log. Day 2, post-exposure Harvest 12's web shows clear triangulation patterns. Points directly at observation window 3. Coincidence? Patel spent 17 minutes in front of H12's frame today. Longer than necessary. What were they communicating? Day 4. The skittering is a chorus. It has rhythms, crescendos when I am alone. Chun accidentally left a transfer cage unlatched. I found it, he said. It was an oversight. Liar. Day 6. They know I can see them. They've stopped pretending. Their movements are a language, a planning session. Patel and Chun are part of it. They bring them nutrients, they clean their frames. They are the keepers. The acolytes. I began to sabotage the work. I accidentally corrupted a genetic sequence file. I adjusted the humidity settings in Habitat Sector C, making it slightly arid, uncomfortable for the I did it not with malice, but with the desperate logic of a besieged general. I was cutting their supply lines, disrupting their communications. My boss, Dr. Silva, called me into her office. It's a clean white space with a single, tasteful, abstract painting. No windows into the habitats. Safe, Aris. Your work is slipping. Chun and Patel are concerned. They say you're agitated, talking about the spiders in strange ways. They're not just spiders, I hissed, leaning forward. My hands were trembling. I clenched them into fists. The Aspect 9 breach. It did something. It's a pheromone. It's for them. It's made me legible to them. And they are not what we think they are. Silver watched me, her expression a blend of professional concern and deep disappointment. Aris, the medical scans show nothing. Blood work is clean. The pheromone is inert in humans. This is stress. Project fatigue. It's in my head, but it's real, I insisted, the paradox tearing at my sanity. She sighed. I'm mandating a stress test observation. For your own well-being and for the project's security. What does that mean? It means tonight you will be in the main habitat chamber, alone, for 8 hours. Sensors will monitor your vitals, the environment, everything. It's a standard protocol for suspected libingus paranoia. It proves the reality of the environment. It grounds you. It was a death sentence. They were giving me to the colony. A sacrifice to appease their 8-legged gods. The heavy door sealed behind me with a final hydraulic sigh. The humid, warm air pressed in, thick and suffocating. The skittering chorus rose to a deafening roar, a waterfall of dry, clicking static. The chamber was vast, lit by the dim, emergency moonglow of the safety lights. The web frames towered like gibbets in the gloom. I could see them, every one of them, motionless, waiting. For the first 2 hours, I sat in the center of the room. On the cold floor, my back to a support column. I recited the periodic table. I calculated protein sequences in my head. The spiders did nothing. They were just shapes. Shadows, Dad, then. Harvest 7 moved. Not a casual lagojemand. A slow, deliberate crawl from the center of her web to the very edge of the frame, closest to me. Her body was a pulsating, golden teardrop in the low light. Others followed. Not all at once. A wave. From frame to frame, a ripple of malevolent attention. They were positioning themselves. Surrounding me, the webs began to shimmer, not with dew, but with a foul, internal phosphorescence. The patterns I'd seen, the runes, the angles now glowed a sickly, yellowish green. They were words. A sentence of condemnation. This wasn't just sound anymore. It was voice. A susurrating, chittering language forming in the air around me. It said one word, over and over, in 1,000 hissing whispers. Mine, mine. Mine. I broke. With a raw shout that tore my throat, I launched. Myself at the nearest emergency station. Behind its glass pane was a fire extinguisher and a canister of pressurized pesticide, a last resort measure for biocontainment. I smashed the glass with my bare fist, ignoring the shredding pain. I hauled out the pesticide canister. It was labeled for crawling insects. It would have to do. I ran along the rows, spraying a toxic, acrid fog. I screamed at them. Curses, please, challenges. Come on then, show me. They reacted. Not with attack, but with a perfect, fluid, terrifying retreat. As the chemical mist drifted toward their frames, they didn't scatter in panic. They moved backwards, in unison, a synchronized ballet of revulsion. They clumped together on the far sides of their webs, their bodies trembling. Not with predatory hunger, but with fear. Pure, instinctual fear. They're afraid of me. The thought was a fissure in the bedrock of my delusion. In their world, I was a grotesque, shambling giant, spraying poison and madness. I was the monster. But the fissure closed too fast. The horror was too deep. If they weren't attacking, they were manipulating, luring me into complacency. This retreat was a tactic. It had to be. I saw the industrial solvent dispensers used for cleaning equipment. Flammable. I grabbed one, unscrewed the cap, and began dousing the nearest web frames, the floor, the polymer vines. The reek of alcohol cut through the pesticide and the earthy smell of the habitat. I pulled my lighter from my pocketer, stupid, personal item, against all lab protocol. No more silk. I roared, and I touched the flame to a strand. Fire, orange and hungry, leapt up the frame with a soft hump. It was beautiful. It was cleansing. It was the only answer to the whispers and the watching eyes. The automated sprinkler system engaged instantly. A deluge of cold, chlorinated water blasted from the ceiling, dousing the flames, soaking me, to the bone in seconds. The alarms wailed, a screaming counterpoint to the dying hiss of the fire. In the strobing emergency lights, the spiders huddled, motionless, their world flooded, their webs in tatters. I stood in the center of the devastation, gasping, sobbing. Victorious and utterly hollow. Dr. Silver's observation room was quiet, clinically cool. The abstract painting looked smug. I sat across from her, my hands bandaged, my body leaden with sedatives and defeat. I was waiting for the termination papers, the lawsuit, the police. "We have the footage from last night, Eris," she said, her voice devoid of emotion. She turned a large monitor toward me. From every angle, the screen showed the main habitat chamber, in high definition, infrared, and thermal. I saw myself enter, looking wired, paranoid. I saw myself sit, rock back and forth. Then, I watched myself begin to talk to empty corners of the room, to scream at blank web frames. The spiders all manned in their enclosures. Behind the secondary, fine mesh barriers I had completely failed to notice in my psychosis. They were placid, unmoving. Some were molting. Others were simply hanging. On the footage, I smashed the emergency glass. I sprayed pesticide at empty air, at walls. At sealed enclosures where the Nephilim recoiled from the chemicals seeping through their mesh. I doused sterile equipment with solvent. I set fire to a cleaning supply trolley. I battled phantoms. The skittering chorus, the glowing webs, the coordinated movements. The threatening patterns, all of it, only in my head. A private screening of a horror film only I could see. Aspect 9, Silver said softly, pausing the video on an image of me, wild-eyed, screaming soundlessly at a wall. "It doesn't attract them, Aris. Our initial hypothesis was wrong. It's a potent neuroagent that, in a small percentage of primates, induces a hyperspecific extreme arachnophobic psychosis. It hijacks the fear center, that old file of yours, and weaponizes it. It makes the subject perceive benign arachnid behavior as a coordinated, intelligent threat. You didn't just see spiders. You saw your deepest fear, animated and directed at you, by you. The true horror, cold and absolute, settled into my bones. It wasn't out there. It never had been. The spiders in the lab were removed. The project was scrubbed. I was given a generous medical severance, contingent on silence. I sit now in my apartment, in the silence. The medication dulls the age, but it can't rewrite the script. I see a cobweb in a high corner, dust-laden, abandoned. My breath kachars. My heart stutters. Because it's not just a web, I can see the pattern in it. A lazy, slow, waiting pattern. And if I listen, in the dead silence of the night, underneath the hum of the refrigerator, I can just make out the faintest echo of the chorus. A dry, whispering rustle. The silk was never the thing. The fear was, and it's woven itself permanently into the fabric of my mind. They are in the walls. They are in the patterns of the ceiling plaster, the grain of the wooden floor. They are in the silence between heartbeats. They are always, always watching. And I am forever, terrifically, alone with them. My first morning at Hemlock Reach Reserve. The fog didn't lift. It slept. It lay in the deep valleys of the Pacific Northwest woods like a dense, grey blanket, soaking the colossal Douglas firs until they dripped a constant, slow cadence onto the moss below. I'd traded the gridlock and curated green squares of Seattle for this. My new patrol cabin smelled of damp pine and old stone. I was 24, a city kid with a degree in environmental science and something to prove, mostly to myself. The locals in the Gastock town, 30 miles down the mountain, had made that clear enough. You're the new ranger. The old man. At the general store had asked, his eyes the color of shale. He didn't wait for an answer. Mind the reach. And mind the big oak, up on Sorrow Ridge. It's quiet up there now. I'd smiled to my professional, dismissive smile. I'd heard the whispers already. The weaver in the wood. Teenager stuff? Campfire stories to spook newcomers. My proving ground began with a routine check on Sorrow Ridge. The hike was a silent, steep climb through Predon gloom. The forest here was a cathedral, the trees so tall they vanished into the low cloud. The usual soundtrack was absent. No chatter of squirrels, no scolding jays. Just the drip and my own breath and the soft crush of my boots on the needle-strewn path. I found the oak. It was impossible to miss a titan. Its girth the size of my patrol truck. Its branches like arthritic fingers clawing at the mist. And it was wrapped. I stopped, my hand falling from the map on my GPS unit. A strange, silken material sheathed the entire trunk and every branch, layer upon meticulous layer. It wasn't it was matte, almost chalky, and reflected the dull light in a way that hurt the eyes if you stared too long. It was the largest spiderweb I'd ever seen, a breathtaking, horrific feat of natural engineering. My scientific mind kicked. In trying to catalog it, a mass ballooning event? Some unknown fungus. I took out my phone, snapping pictures. The silence felt heavier here, a pressure in my ears. That afternoon, I reported the biological oddity to my district manager over a crackling satellite phone. Massive silking on a heritage oak. Possible new arthropod behavior. I'll collect samples. Just be careful, Maya, she'd said, her voice tinny and distant. The locals have stories about that place. I scoffed inwardly. Stories. I was here for data. The next day, the web had spread. Not from the oak, but between trees. High up, 60, 70 feet in the air, strands as thick as climbing ropes spanned the gaps between firs. They formed impossible geometry-sharp angles and perfect triangles, not the chaotic spirals of orb weavers. No spider builds like that. No spider can. A cold finger traced my spine. I took more pictures, my hand steady but my mind beginning. To Stutterdot on the third day, I found the first statue. It was a young black-tailed deer, frozen mid-step in a small clearing. It was encased in the same chalky silk, wrapped so tightly it was a perfect, ghastly effigy. Not a mound of web, but a contoured shroud. The eyes were covered. It stood, a marble monument to stillness. No decay smell, no buzzing flies. Just a deafening, watchful silence. My professional curiosity curdled into a hard, cold lump in my stomach. I reached out, against every screaming instinct, and tapped the deer's flank. It gave a hollow, wooden sound. Empty. The forest was no longer just quiet, it was being emptied. My patrols became tense, paranoid. I saw more wrapped forms: a pileated woodpecker on a branch, a coyote caught in a thicket. All hollow, all silent. The web in the canopy thickened, becoming a gauzy, shifting ceiling that filtered the light into a perpetual twilight. The fog, once just weather, now felt like a deliberate shroud. Then I found the human-sized one. It was near a collapsed trail marker for a popular hiking loop. A chrysalis, taller than me, leaning against a mossy boulder. The shape was unmistakable. The contour of a backpack, the suggestion of legs, the slump of a head. A name tag from a tech company in Portland was half feasible, fused into the silk at its base. My hands shook as I radioed it in. This was no longer biology. This was a crime scene. But what kind of criminal leaves no trace but silk? The official response was slow, mired in bureaucracy, and, I suspected, a deep-seated reluctance from the county officials who knew the old stories. A detective came, looked at the chrysalis from 20 feet away, his face pale. "Animal attack," he muttered. Not meeting my eyes. Some kind of nesting behavior. He left before dusk, his tires spitting gravel. That night, in my cabin, I pored over my photos. The geometries, the scale, the perfect, hollow preservation. This wasn't a predator taking sustenance. This was a collector, a curator. The old words came back to me. The weaver in the wood, not a spider, a weaver. Something that saw the entire forest as its loom, and everything in it as either thread or finished product. The next morning, the district manager's voice was tense on the satellite phone. "Maya, we're issuing a quarantine. A team is assembling. Do not, repeat, do not enter the central reach. Just hold at your station." But my station was inside it. And as I listened, I saw a fresh pearlescent strand drift down from my porch roof, connecting the railing to a young hemlock. It was testing the boundaries of my cabin, my sanctuary. I panicked. I decided to go to the big oak, to the heart of it, to understand, to get final, undeniable proof before the suits arrived, and called it a fungal outbreak or a hoax. I packed a kit, my knife, my bare spray pathetic tools. I knew, but they were all I had. The forest was a warped tapestry. The web wasn't just above now. It was beginning to form faint, geometric lattice on the ground, between ferns and fallen logs. The path behind me seemed to blur, the fog thickening with every step. I was being led or herded. I stumbled into the clearing around the great oak. The mist here was a rolling, silver soup. The oak was now a monstrous white spindle, the source from which the entire, terrible loom seemed to radiate. And then I saw the source of the weaving. The mist coalesced against the trunk. It wasn't a spider. It was a shifting, semi-translucent mass, the size of a minivan. It had legs too many to count, but they weren't jointed chitin. They were like strands of thickened shadow, of condensed fog, moving with a horrible, liquid grace. Spinnerets pale as moonlight pulsed at its rear. Its body seemed woven from the very substance of the web, and the forest's darkness, a living part of the pattern. It didn't turn. It didn't need to see me. It was the clearing. A sound began, not from it, but from the web itself, a deep, vibrational hum that thrummed up through the soles of my boots, into my teeth, into the marrow of my bones. It was the sound of tension, of a string being tuned to a frequency that vibrated flesh. It didn't charge. One of its shadow legs moved, almost languidly, and touched a strand leading from the oak. Instantly, the path I'd entered by, the break in the trees, began to veil over. Strands shot across it, weaving a perfect, geometric barrier with terrifying speed. It was closing the loop. It was finishing this section of the tapestry, and I was a loose thread within it. Pure animal terror took over. I ran, not for the path, but away from the humming mass. I crashed through underbrush, thorns tearing at my clothes, the bone-deep hum pursuing me. I could hear the soft snap hiss of new strands being woven behind me, to my sides. It was reknitting the forest, closing off my escape routes one by one. My boot caught on a root, and I fell, tumbling down a steep, muddy embankment. I landed with a stunning splash in ice-cold water. The creek, a shallow, rocky stream cutting through the forest floor. I lay there, gasping, waiting for the shadow legs to pierce the fog above me. They didn't come. Shivering, I looked around. The web ran in perfect grids to the very banks of the creek, but not an inch over the water. The silk strands stopped at the dirt, as if repelled. The creek was a flaw in the pattern, a break in the loom. I scrambled downstream on my hands and knees, staying in the water, the cold numbing my legs. I didn't stand until I saw the rusty roof of my cabin through the trees. A mile beyond the usual web line. The quarantine was swift and total. Men in unmarked hazard suits arrived. My report, every photo, every observation was filed, stamped, and taken. The official story, the one that eventually trickled out, was a contained biocontaminant, a novel silking fungus. No mention of hollow statues, no mention of the shape by the boulder. My manager told me, her voice tight, that I'd done good work, and that I was being reassigned. A promotion to an urban park district in Portland. A soft, quiet burial. I took it. I needed concrete, glass, and the roar of traffic to drown out the memory of that vibrational hum. My new office is on the 14th floor, overlooking a square of city greenery. It's been 3 months. I drink too much coffee and jump at sudden silences. Today, on my lunch break, I walked. The autumn sun was sharp on the skyscrapers. I cut through an alley, a narrow canyon between 2 brick buildings. Something caught the light, high up in the corner where a fire escape met a rusted gutter. A web, not a dusty cobweb. A perfect, geometric triangle of silken threads, pristine and strong. The same chalky, matte texture. An impossible shape for any city spider. My breath seized. The alley was silent, the city roar a distant ocean. I looked around. No one. Driven by a dread I can't name, I reached up. My fingertips, trembling, brushed the lowest strand. It thrummed. A faint, familiar vibration traveled down the silk. Through my finger, into my wrist, a tiny tuning fork echo of the deafening hum in the clearing. It was a signal. A test pattern? I snatched my hand back, as if burned, and stared up at the towering concrete and steel around me. Not a forest. A different kind of canopy. A new, complex loom. It didn't stay in the woods. It's here, learning. And in the vast, silent cathedral of the city, it's beginning to weave again.